And hello, everyone, and welcome to the ReinventED Legal Business, the Case Studies series from the Centre for Legal Innovation at the College of Law. We started this series last year with the intention of really being able to showcase those stories and those journeys of firms and their founders who have really looked at practicing law quite differently. And Michael Morrissey, who you can see on the screen here, is a fantastic example of that through and with Morrissey Law and Advisory Team, really doing some fantastic stuff in their area of focus and specialisation, which is obviously construction and commercial. So with that being said, Michael, thank you so much for being with us today and telling us your amazing story. I can't wait. I'm going to disappear from the screen now and go on mute and hand it over to you. You are very, very welcome.
Thanks, Terri. Okay, thank you everyone for coming along on a Friday afternoon in what for many people was a very short week, and particularly on a day where I know a lot of people have their kids going back to school for the first day. So again, thank you for coming along and thank you for being prepared to listen to a little bit about our firm's journey and story and what we're doing. So let's get moving. So I guess where I wanted to start with was around what our purpose is as a business. At Morrissey, it's the thing we go back to we reflect on most. And it's the thing that I guess I focused in on when I decided to found a law firm. And for me, it was finding a business or starting a business that gave me an opportunity to focus in on what my purpose was and try to reshape that into a framework where I guess we could deliver that as a law firm. So, at a very high level, what our purpose as a business is to build better relationships. And when we talk about that, we talk about that in a really broad sense. As lawyers, we're uniquely and very specially placed to be able to help people with their relationships. And I say that in the context of I'm a construction lawyer and I get the benefit of working with people right through projects, and all those projects have various relationships. I work on disputes. There's obviously less harmonious relationships in that context. But for me, that passion around people and relationships meant when I started a law firm, I wanted to be able to build a business that was employee-centric, with the view from that then being if we've got a really employee-centric team with a real focus on well-being, we'll be in the best position to, as a business, be able to go out and help the industries we work with, and potentially work really well with other lawyers. So yeah, the focus and the purpose for us is really around building better relationships throughout the world in which we operate. So from there, this is us as a snapshot in January 2021. So we're 11 lawyers. So under half our team's lawyers, and we really have put a lot of emphasis on building a really good framework of other people to help us deliver what we want to as lawyers. So we've got 2 legal project managers. And if you asked me 3 years ago what a legal project manager did, I would have had no idea. I think one of the first events I did with Terri was when they ran the course on legal project management. And I'll talk a bit on why that's important to us as we go along. We have 2 designers. We have a passion about legal design. So the easiest way to solve that is to bring those resources in-house. We also have 2 law graduates, some paralegals, a knowledge manager, and a small support team. We also have at least 5 dogs, and I apologise to anyone from my team if I've missed your dog, but we have at least 5 dogs that rotate through our office on a regular basis. So different personalities each day coming through. And we've got 4 offices. So the heart of the business and our main office is in Newcastle. And I think, as a few other people would find, having a regional base or a base outside of Sydney gives you a pretty special opportunity to do things things a bit differently. We also have a team in Sydney. We have a team in Port Macquarie, and we service the Central West remotely. I grew up in Central West New South Wales, so we've made a real effort to try and be in a position to help businesses and industries there. And the main industries we're working with these days around construction infrastructure, and that's my background. I was a construction and infrastructure lawyer. We also have teams that work in emerging businesses. So we love, as a business, and with that focus on relationships, we're really excited about looking towards the future. And construction gives an opportunity to do that. You literally see things come out of the ground and the shape of the landscape change. But I've always been fascinated by what startups are doing. So when we had an opportunity and the right lawyers came along, we launched an emerging businesses team with a focus on venture capital and helping startups. And again, with that future focus and that purpose around building better relationships, we really have an interest and work within the energy space, particularly new energy, and in working out different solutions around agribusiness. So that's probably us at a snapshot, what we do, where we are, who we are. And the values we work around, just building on from that purpose. And I have those written down on my desk or on my wall most of the time, around being kind, doing good, loving to learn. And love to learn is probably the one that I'll focus in a little bit today, because I think it's relevant to what I'm talking about as to why we built the business. Creating value and being accountable. So those are the 5 values that sort of sit under our purpose in how we shape what we do, and that impacts on most things from the people we work with, who's joined our team, right through to the types of businesses and industries we've chosen to partner with as lawyers. So the next stage in the questions that were put to me were looking at traditional law and looking towards the future. So I suppose we'll start with what we really liked about traditional law. And we sat down with a few lawyers, directors and some juniors, and talked through what we actually really love about traditional law. And being, in inverted commas, a new law firm, I don't dislike traditional law in a lot of elements. Like some of the things that really came to mind for us were the ability to be a technician, particularly when you're coming out of big law. So having that ability to be a true expert in what you do, we've certainly benefited from building the team out with those kind of people. So people that really understand the legal principles and the area of law that they work in. So for us, for example, we didn't launch our startup team until we found someone that had amazing experience working in VC and working with startups, because I just hadn't been exposed to that world. We have people that have worked in large law firms in front-end construction, in disputes, in insurance. We've got people that have had a lot of experience in new energy. We believe that learning that you get in some of those big law firm environments can be quite extraordinary. And the flow on from that is traditional law often has a lot of long-term corporate knowledge. So we, as a law firm, we decided to focus very much on working within certain industries. And we believe having that industry knowledge along with that technical knowledge is something that traditional law can do extraordinarily well. Shared learning was the other thing we talked about. And there was an AFR article actually talking about this recently, and that's where I got the master and apprentice terminology again from. I'd heard it years ago, but it sort of came to the fore when the managing partner of Clayton Utz was talking about why they've got people that might come back into the office post-COVID. And they talked about the benefit of that master and apprentice style of learning that you get as a lawyer. And that's something I really appreciated when I was a junior lawyer. And that's something when I've spoken to other people in our team, they really enjoyed that ability to learn from people that were true experts, and coming through the ranks and having that master and apprentice style where you get better and better and better as you go through your career. Big law does that exceptionally well. So having that ability to become that expert and teach people in a certain way is something we really like about traditional law. And the other thing, and I don't think big and traditional law necessarily get as much credit as they could in this space, but they test ideas in a way that us as a small firm, we're 25 people, don't get to do. So to use a live example I know of, iManage, the document management provider I know, has partnered with a lot of large law firms in the US to try their AI product, Raven. So, in terms of things like AI getting into day-to-day law, big laws and traditional laws, often the place where those ideas get tested in a different way to what small law firms can do. So that's what we like. What we like a little bit less. So we started to talk about it, and one of my colleagues said it has its place, but it's not for us. And I actually quite like that. Traditional law certainly has a place, but that's not how we want to work. And the thing that kept coming up, again, I spoke to my colleagues and a few people outside of our business, is what we don't like and what some of the friends of the business don't like about traditional law is how that culture piece works. And I'm not going to dive into that too much. I will say that my colleague Belinda Crosby did quite a long expose on some of those cultural issues last year, which is available through her LinkedIn and a few other articles that she's put out recently. But the problems with culture, there's a lot of data that sits behind that, so I'm just going to leave that for another day. Other things we don't like were the status quo. So I think one of the problems that traditional law has, and it's probably fed by some of the things we like about it, when you've got those technicians, when you've got that corporate and industry knowledge, when industry has traditionally gone to you, you're not motivated to change the status quo. And as we spoke to, again, our colleagues and a few people outside of the business, that status quo doesn't always work. And again, there's data out there, and I'm not going to go into that data at the moment, but it hurts innovation. And the other thing that the status quo really hurts is looking after the well-being of your team. So some of those models, and the phrase patriarchal models was put to me as we were preparing for this. Some of those patriarchal models that sit within existing law firms mean that well-being isn't looked after in the way we should. And when we talk about our purpose as a business being focused on building better relationships, that means well-being has to come first. And if the status quo in some environments means that well-being isn't the priority, then it's not going to work for us. Billables was the other one that came up, and that might be because we're actively working to remove the billable hour from our business at the moment after a few slips along the way of doing that. But the way we measure staff in traditional law isn't, again, it's going back to status quo and culture to a degree, but the way we measure staff and provide services to clients doesn't necessarily lead to innovation in the way that you'd like. The measurements of staff doesn't necessarily, by 6.5 hours a day, doesn't lead to good outcomes for staff and doesn't put their well-being front of mind. And the thing that we found as we started to get rid of the billable hour is, as you get rid of it, you start to adopt a different kind of innovation mindset. So when you've got those systems in place, you might be preventing the change happening in the business that you'd like to see. The next thing from that, the next question that followed on was what we believe can be done better, and we're pretty absolute in where we reached here. So we think law firms are better served with a people-centric culture, and that goes right back to our purpose and our values. We believe that a lot of law firms, I don't want to lump every law firm in this box, but a lot of law firms don't put people first. And the well-being of their people first, and if that's done, the well-being of the clients is then better looked after as well. Law firms don't have an innovation mindset, and I'm sure Terri and a bunch of other people, including some of those listening to this podcast, can speak about what an innovation mindset looks like in a bit more detail. But I've shared some reading at the back of this around that. But we believe law firms adopting that innovation mindset is absolutely critical. what flows on from those two things is really embracing technology and also moving towards that value-based pricing model where you're starting to think about the people, how you can use technology and how you can innovate a bit differently overall. And I guess that leads into the next bit, what we've done. When I look back on, we've been in business just over 3 years now. Sometimes I don't think what we've done is particularly innovative. But I guess I'll talk through what it looks like and what our approach feels like. But the first thing is to be progressive. And I've borrowed that term from Mel at Hive Legal. She uses it a lot, and she uses it as an alternative to new law. She talks about progressive law, and it's a term that I really like. And I often think about US politics or whatever else when you're talking about being progressive. But I think as a business, having that mindset of how you can have that that constant cycle or process of improvement is something as a business. As business owners should be absolutely focused in on, but it's something that leads to better outcomes. So for us to be progressive, the first point is to stick to the plan. So we are pretty absolute in our purpose around building better relationships, and we're pretty absolute in our values. So that do good, be kind, love to learn, create value, and be accountable. And if something doesn't fit within that purpose or doesn't align with those values, that is not something our business will be doing. And as the board of directors, when we sit down and we're weighing up strategic decisions or paths the business might go, that's what we bring to the fore. We talk through those things regularly and what that means, and it means slightly different things to each leader in the business, but it's something we focus in each time. And if a decision we're about to make doesn't fit within that purpose or doesn't align with those values, we step aside from it. And some of the things we've got wrong, and that might be the type of work we've done or the approach we've taken on something or a hire we've made. Where we've got that wrong is because we've stepped outside of that plan and outside of that purpose. The next one for us is that people-centric approach. So our business is people. We're employee-centric at our heart, and we say that loudly and proudly because if we're looking after our employees and their well-being, we get better outcomes for our clients. And as a business, we've found that does also make us more profitable. So, it was something we believed in and we weren't quite sure where it was going to land. But that focus on wellbeing and focus on people 3 years in is succeeding for us. So I'm going to work around the clock on this, and that leads to team-led change for us. So being progressive means that we trust our employees to take certain risks, and we speak to them about being leaders and being prepared to try things. And that means rather than me sitting at the top of the tree, waving a stick, telling people what to do, a lot of the change we're starting to see in the business is ideas from all levels of the business, and particularly from our juniors. We've got we're quite a young team. A lot of our team is under 30, and they have different ways to solve problems to what I knew of or what I thought about or what I think about or what I've been taught. So having the team embrace what we're doing, understand the purpose and values, and then drive the change, and have that platform where they know that they can take risk means that we get that opportunity to progress as a business. And finally, technology is awesome. It's really, really cool. It's fun. There's lots of stuff out there. Legal tech is interesting, but tech generally is really, really interesting. We've got a few people in our team that are far more tech savvy than I will ever be. And they find little things we can use or platforms we can make or things to make our technology speak differently or things to try that just are very different to what I ever thought I'd be doing as a lawyer. So you just have to be prepared to embrace it, and you have to be prepared to understand it and work with people that do understand it, because we've got to do our due diligence around it. But a lot of the stuff is really useful, can be used in a way that doesn't compromise confidentiality, clients, or anything like that. But it's out there, it's very cool, and it's very fun. The next big thing for us is being curious. And I've spoken about this at length before, so I'm not going to, with Lucy Dickens, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but being curious means being prepared to try new things. And that's a really hard mindset to get into as a lawyer. And that's that innovation mindset I spoke about earlier. But a lot of lawyers are naturally conservative, and I don't blame them. We're dealing with complex problems for clients, and for clients, we shouldn't be taking certain risks. But as a business, I love playing with new stuff. Like there's a new toy in the toy box. Let's see what it does. So have a go, try new things, and that means building stuff as well. So we've got a team, and there's a new dashboard that I've been told about that they're playing with in our legal design team. That's great. We're building calculators and different tools as to how to cost matters. We're working on different ways to get technology or different platforms to work with each other. We're building pretty rudimentary things to help our business, but it's fun. And it means we get to test ideas in a different way. Like just putting it on paper and saying, well, this would be exciting, is nowhere near as exciting as trying to do it. And I don't come from a tech or an engineering background, but there's lots of new products. There's lots of different things to try, even learning about legal design and seeing how we can implement that for clients' contracts, or learning about legal project management and working out how we can use that to better deliver services. It's a very different approach to what I was taught earlier in my career. But the thing that follows on from that curiosity is then you have to have that willingness to invest. And that's something that can be really hard. And I started this business 3.5 years ago with a pretty small credit card and no idea quite where it was going to go. But at each opportunity we've had as a leadership team, we've tried to put aside money and profit within the business to then spend time and money on doing things and investing in innovation and things that we think can lead to better outcomes. So we have a number of consultants that work with us and test us and bring knowledge that we wouldn't otherwise have access to. So we've gone out and actively engaged people that are doing very cool stuff, whether it's in legal design, whether it's in leadership, whether it's in around technology and practice management systems. We've invested in non-legal employees, and that's probably the thing that's a few people have raised eyebrows about with me when I say I've got 2 legal project managers and we've hired 2 legal designers. Like, oh, what are they? I'm like, oh, 2 of them are graphic designers with user experience background. So let's see what they can do. And that investment has really, really paid off for us. Spend time training your staff. And I guess that goes back, your staff's curious as well. Your team is curious as to what you're doing and how you get in there. And some of these things are big ideas or big concepts or even just new concepts. If you've stepped out of a large law firm and you've never heard of the term legal design before, training that staff member in that is absolutely critical. It's really overwhelming to be going through a dramatic change or being in a business that looks a bit different if you don't have the training and the confidence to know what you're doing. And one of the other things is have fun. Like lots of games. We've got Lego in the office. We play with Lego. There's things to get the mind working. There's different ways to solve things. We had someone's kids in here yesterday building board games for us. And then the follow-on from all of that is it takes time. So you have to be prepared to invest in innovation, not just in cash, but with your time as well. The thing for us that, and I guess this is something I did learn and we have taken out of traditional law in a lot of respects, is that specialist knowledge. The previous firm I was with had a lot of specialist construction law knowledge. That's how I became an expert in the field. But I knew, or I always believed, if we valued building better relationships, we had to really know our stuff. We had to know our industry. We had to know the law around our industry. We had to know the problems our clients were facing, and we had to know how to come up with ways to solve those problems. And that creativity, curiosity, and other aspects I was chatting about earlier also become really helpful when you're giving that specialist advice, because you're thinking about problems a bit differently. But yeah, you got to know your stuff. And I can't emphasize that enough. And that's what's given us the ability to elevate and grow as a law firm, is our clients trust us. We know what we're talking about in that space, and we try not to step out of that zone. Phase one of the business was around construction and the built environment, and that's what the core of our team still built around. They've come out of large law firms and good law firms, and they love and they're passionate about construction, the built environment, where things are going, what's happening. We've got members in the team that love digging through a plan or going to visit site and then working out how that translates into a dispute or how that translates into a construction contract. Like, they really believe about that. And then phase two for us was that expansion into emerging businesses, those VCs and startups, and around energy and agribusiness. And they were natural crossovers. We were already starting to touch on those fields, but we were very fortunate to be able to pick up team members that are lovely people, excellent people, and also excellent lawyers. The other part of giving that specialist advice is you have to be able to speak to your market. So you have to be able to tailor the message you're giving. You're not speaking to a business or an industry, you're speaking to people. They're facing real problems. 2020 really did crystallise that for a lot of people. Yes, they're a business, and often they're a successful business, but they're going through people problems. And the things you're talking about relate directly back to people. So understand the space you're working in, and to understand that business or industry, you really need to understand the people that are involved in it, and that puts you in the best position to give that specialist advice. Now, this is the other thing I guess I wanted to emphasise a little bit today. It doesn't always work, and one of the designers reframed this for me. It's a direction, not a destination. I really like that, and that fits very much with having a purpose. Like, a purpose should be something that guides your business and doesn't have a finite lifespan, and that's really hard to work out. So for us, we can continue to build better relationships, but there's not an end goal in that. It's the direction we work. It's the direction we carry our team and work with our team. It's the direction we want to continue to be moving towards. But in doing that, we have to accept, I'm a first-time business owner. I know I don't know everything. I definitely will never know everything, and I will do things that don't work. And so we've tried different technology. We've thrown things out. We've gone back to things we've tried before. We've looked at products. We've ummed and ahed. We've started down a path on something and realised it's not for us, and then gone back and revisited it and tweaked it and pivoted and all those fun things. But it's about perseverance. It's about being adaptable. It's about reflection and introspection, and being curious and passionate, and realising that things go a little bit wrong. And you need to tweak it as you go along. And the best thing about that is you don't have to do it alone. So what I've found really invigorating about starting my own business and starting this law firm is that I've had the opportunity to speak to amazing people that are also doing some amazing things. I'm going to just do a brief shout out because I can see her name here, but Janelle at Helix Legal, she's in our space, but in Brisbane, and she's doing phenomenal stuff, and having people like that we can have frank conversations with and trust, and other people that are in periphery industries or law firms that are doing slightly different, working in slightly different areas to us. They're doing cool stuff. Speak to them, be vulnerable, share what's worked and what hasn't worked, and you can both hopefully improve. Be prepared to try those new things, and it is really easy to be a closed book and go, well, that won't work. Oh, I'm not going to do that, or that impacts this. So you need to to try new things, you need to speak to people, and to speak to people, you don't need to limit. You need to build a circle that not just includes our profession, but also industry. I've learned amazing things from some of our construction clients and transport clients and people in industry. And the biggest thing I've found is that reaching out, people are often prepared to share those ideas and work with us. So, yeah, particularly when you know things aren't always going to plan, it's nice to be able to bounce ideas off other people. And so this is the cycle towards success. And again, one of our designers put this together for me. This is my favourite slide in the whole presentation, but it's not a straight line. It's not a cycle. It's a messy, convoluted journey that's really fun. And you have to accept that. I mean, it's really easy. You start to put goals for the year, or goals for the week, or goals for the month, or goals for the business life down, and it's just not how it's going to work. And 2020 was the perfect example of that. We sat down in March and doomsday, like, how will we exist? It was an existential crisis for us, and as I'm sure it was for a lot of you. Like, what does the law in 2021 look like? If are we all sick and locked down home? Like, what's happening? And you just have to expect that things are going to be messy, and you're going to have to be prepared to revisit and go back and forth and chop and change and move things around. And that's where the purpose for me becomes paramount. Like, that line looks really messy, but if you're still working towards that, towards those goals, you've got your mission, if you've got the values, if you've got the purpose in place, yes, you might go backwards for a little while and you might cross over and you might jump around a little bit and it gets squiggly and messier, but that's cool. That's part of the fun. That's the bit that we get to enjoy. So the things we really focused in on are active listening. And it's something that wasn't always a priority in teams I've been a part of previously. So constantly listening to the team. We want to do things differently. And as I've emphasised, we're certainly not doing it perfectly, and we're certainly learning along the way. And having that willingness to change and improve is really tough. So knowing that change is hard means that we need to listen to our team. And some of the goals we've got for 2021, for example, we're hoping to have got rid of the billable hour within our business completely within about 3 months. That's led by the team. It's not led by me. That team has bought in. The team has bought in on that, and that's what they're working towards. And there's a number of other goals that the team has come up with that align with our purpose and values, that we've trusted them to move forward, and that's how things are happening. Excuse me, there's been problems we've been trying to solve that Hamish, one of the other directors that I've sat on since very early days in the business, we didn't get anywhere. We gave it to the team, they got done. So listening to your team, what they think is achievable, how they think they can get there is absolutely critical. Listen to your clients, and this is, we talk about user experience a lot. Our clients are users. They're dealing with law. They're often dealing with lawyers because they're in difficult, stressful situations. They come into us because they trust us to solve complex problems. We should be able to be creative and come up with solutions for them that are really good. And what on paper might look like a good solution as a lawyer might not be what your client's after. So working out what outcomes clients are after really gives you an opportunity to shape what technology you build. There's a few projects that we put on hold. For example, we've been building out a construction law model for smaller businesses called Lawyer by Trade, and we actually put that on hold for a while because we hadn't built it in a way that was workable for the clients we wanted to give it to. So we're continuing to speak with our clients and reshape what that product is. Investing in advisors too. So there are other people that know more than you, and they're great to chat to, and they're great to have some degree of investment in your business. You paying them helps with that, and finding the people that are able to give that advice or give that candor is really critical, because I've found, again, here and in other businesses I've been involved in, you become a bit of an information loop, and you're caught on ideas, or you're caught on processes, or you're not aware of something. And if you've got external people that are able to come and give you frank advice and help you, that's really important. And for us, it's meant we've managed to get rid of a few things jamming up the business, or stretch and leap over a problem that we'd otherwise been caught up on. the implementation isn't easy. It's really hard. So, ideas are wonderful. Implementing means you have to have a preparedness to fail. I'm not necessarily willing to fail. I accept that I'm going to fail, and it'll happen over and over again. And where we get to is, because of those failures, because we've been in that position where things haven't gone to plan and the original idea wasn't what we thought it would be. So we failed, we adjusted, we came up with something, and often we've ended up with a better outcome. So this version, I'm just using it because it's the most active project I'm involved in at the moment of removing the billable hour. The model we've come up with is entirely different to the first model I had in the business and the second model, and now we're up to a model that is really exciting. That's been team-led. The ideas came differently and we got things wrong, and that's cool. And learn from others and have those frank conversation. Again, I go back to the people across our industry, but also across complementary industries, whether it's accounting, construction, tech. They've had these implementation errors. They've got things wrong. They've been caught on a path or caught on a problem, and they haven't been able to move past it. So if you put yourself in a position where you can learn something from them, that's extraordinarily useful. So one of the questions Terri asked leading into this, what was the advice you'd give? And I certainly don't feel qualified to give any advice, so I put that disclaimer on there. But for me, I'd lost my passion in law in my previous business, and I wasn't enjoying things the way I did. So once I'd left that, I had almost my come to Jesus moment in Broken Hill, where as I was thinking about what my purpose was, I realised that it was really around helping people. And for me, that's about building better relationships. So what my driver is really my purpose. My purpose is absolutely critical. It gives me the passion to work each day. I have people in the business that share similar purposes, and that aligns with our business purpose of building better relationships, and you need that. I struggle to see as a lawyer or a business person how you get ahead or how you continue to improve without that purpose giving you some degree of guidance. The love of learning is really important too, and I assume people are in law because you learn a lot, you read a lot. You must have that interest. So I sort of emphasise spending the time meeting people. There's really cool, interesting people. Reading a lot, and that isn't necessarily cases. I think the next slide or the slide after, I've got a whole lot of books listed. They're my 2020 reading that I've stood on my desk and I'm sharing with my team. But they're, getting, again, novels, fiction, non-fiction, all those things give you ideas, and listen to the people. And that goes back to active listening. It means being in the room, being prepared to sit down and have that meaningful conversation. Then it's, once you take the plunge, be prepared to make the investment, because it isn't an easy path. It isn't an easy journey, but there's a lot of stuff out there that's very cool. And yes, that is the last slide, Terri. So my recommended reading, one of the books I always go back to is Let My People Go Surfing. That's by the founder of Patagonia. That stays on my desk a lot of the time. How I built this, that's all with lots of different startups. The No Rules by the Netflix founder, Dare to Lead, Range, and Lucy Dickens' lovely It's Time to Do Law Differently. So that's that in a nutshell. And I hope that's been meaningful and interesting for people. Thanks, Terri.
What a great list, and what a great presentation. Thank you, Michael. It really was just fascinating to hear your journey, and really generous, I think, with your thoughts there and your candour. So very, very much appreciated. We do have some questions for you, and folks, I'm just going to direct you to that button at the end of your screen there with Q&A on it if you would like to address some questions to Michael. Michael, the first one that I'm going to pick up here is one that's certainly very close to my heart as well, and it's really around people-centred innovation. And the question is, do you feel your employee-centric approach helps facilitate innovation?
Absolutely. And I didn't realise how much. That's what I'll start with. When I was starting the business, I had wonderful ideas. I wanted to try and work out the best ways to get there, and could have covered all the walls in this room with every idea I had. And at the heart of that, I wasn't going to achieve that. I'm not the best. I don't carry all knowledge, and I wasn't achieving it. And I was getting pretty frustrated. I was like, we should have this already. We should be there. And I was seeing that as a failure on my behalf. Creating an environment where the team is really happy and healthy, and for the most part, not every day is perfect, but wants to be at work, wants to contribute, and their well-being's at the heart, means we get an immediate return on investment. So it means that people I've found have been more dynamic. They've been prepared to share their ideas in a different way. Not just have they been prepared to share their ideas, they've been prepared to try and test their ideas, and when those ideas have worked, share them with the rest of the team. So having an environment where the well-being of people is put first and is made absolutely paramount has meant that things I might have talked about in past, and it'd be really cool to do this. 3 weeks later, someone comes back and said, I thought that was really cool too, so I've been playing with this, and here's how I think we can solve it. And that also means, and I guess this comes back to why we're getting rid of the billable hour, it means that they spent some time, they weren't feeling like there was a millstone around their neck around hours or something else. They felt they had the opportunity to go and try that. And that they, even if it didn't go quite to plan, that was going to be okay. And they're excited to try ideas in the same way that I am. So that investment in wellbeing in staff means that they become your advocates. They become the people that drive ideas in the business and actually create those opportunities. So I wanted to be in an environment I felt happy in, so that's why the employee-centric was important, but I didn't realise how much of a return of investment we'd have off giving people that opportunity to feel safe and secure and loved, and in an environment where they can trial things.
It's always been curious to me, Michael, that we've spent an enormous amount of resources on things like marketing and business development and building our external relationships and therefore developing those skills, but very often not kind of reflected on those inside our organisation and spent as much time and resources basically on our own people and looking after our own talent. How do you, if you're in that mindset, and it is a very traditional mindset where your focus is on one but you're not translating that to the other, where do you start trying to get people to think about that differently? Or do you, or is it something you have to come to yourself? Is there a catalyst that can get people to think about that differently?
The metrics probably speak to it, Terri. And I mean, if there's a lot of data out there, again, I'll refer to the one my colleague Belinda Crosby put out late last year. It was a series on LinkedIn around it, and it was around some of the more toxic elements of legal workplace culture, around sexual harassment, bullying, some of those things we know, and unfortunately too many people have experienced. But that costs you as a business an extraordinary amount of money. You have to realise that replacing a good employee is going to cost you potentially 6 figures to get that level of person into the team. So if you start to go, well, it's just a bit touchy-feely, airy-fairy, however you want to put it, and at the end of the day, people come to work and they're expected to work. That's fine, but if you look at the numbers that sit behind that, and this isn't just law, other industries have those figures as well, and we've spent quite a bit of time going through it to make sure we weren't just doing a feel-good exercise for ourselves. The figures show that if you have an unhappy, unhealthy workforce, you lose a lot of money. And they also show that if you have a team that is really, if you're focusing on the wellbeing in your team, that return on investment, and again, it might not be immediate, really sits in the 1 to 3 or 1 to 5 figures. Like it's an extraordinary amount of dollars that brings into a business. Just you retain better staff, people drive projects, all those little things that need to happen within a business become that much easier. And it's exciting knowing that those people are happy and healthy. Like I want to be around people that aren't just turning up for a paycheck. I want them to be passionate about the same things I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of in the same vein, and just picking up another question that we've got here, how do you get or inspire your team to lead change? So I guess it's kind of that curiosity, and I guess almost really creating an agile organisation that's attached to that question as well.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know if I've perfected that by any stretch. For me, it's about creating that environment of trust. Like the employees have to know that you trust them. They also have to, once they've got that trust in place, be able to see those gaps where maybe they can improve and know that they've got the opportunity to do so. For us, we've got 4 team KPIs this year. Only one's driven by the directors. The other 4 have all been driven by the employees. What's really interesting is I've taken the back seat on that, and then you just get reports and all these cool things are getting implemented in the background because you give people a voice and an opportunity, and I think it's taken a pretty a deservedly hopeful perspective on people, but they do want to do things better, and if they feel like they've got that safe platform to do so, they do. There might be the occasional person that doesn't fit that mold and they won't fit your organisation. That's okay. They might succeed somewhere else. But overall, I think putting the trust in the team and knowing that trust isn't just a moment in time, that it's something that's a continuing platform for them, means that they start to actively seek how to change or improve or look at different processes that work for not just themselves, but everyone around them.
Yeah, it's almost permission to experiment in a way, isn't it? And that everyone's got a good idea worth listening to.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got another question here. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for being progressive in your practice and law? How you win the work, how you do the work and configure your business, customer service, etc.
I think it goes back to that active listening process. Though we know, and Terri, you and I first met coming up to sort of 7-8 years ago now. We've been talking about the whole time that industries are changing around us. We need to catch up. Being progressive means, I think, realising that other industries are doing things really well. We need to be in that position where we're agile enough, where we're invested in industry, where we're listening to industry and businesses, that we can start to help them how they want to be helped. It's not just saying, well, here's our box, it's going to fit over your business. This is the compliance regime you have to work within, we've told you as lawyers. Clients are sophisticated and smart enough to know that that's not the option, or certainly not the only option. So by being progressive and prepared to listen, we've found that we get a greater level of engagement from our clients. And that's meant that we've continued to grow largely off word of mouth. Like most of our business comes through direct referrals. It's a very nice way to get business. And it also means that the clients that come through are looking or aligned with the values you've got and looking for services to be delivered in the way that you're talking about. So I'm not saying our model's perfect by any stretch or fits every business, but it certainly fits us, and we attract clients that have that ethos. And then we maintain that work because if we deliver against that promise, if we don't deliver against that promise, absolutely that work falls away. But if we can deliver against that promise, that's what those businesses are looking for as well.
Thank you for that. Michael, there's a question I just wanted to ask you, probably picking up something at the beginning of your presentation in a way and combining where you're located. So I'm thinking particularly of regional and rural legal practices and the impact of tech on that. Do you think that tech, and particularly probably as we've used it in the last 12 months, has really levelled the playing field quite a bit for regional and rural practices, in particular, or those not in the immediate CBD, that they're accessing clients in a very similar way, that they're able to provide services in a similar way through tech?
Yeah. I think it has. It rapidly accelerated. It was probably a bit of a competitive advantage before, but there's a lot of talent in regional Australia. There's a lot of talent because people don't want to be in a city. It's because we've got a lot of young families. People, the reason they're in Newcastle, Port Macquarie, is because they've got a big backyard to bring up their families, and they didn't have the same opportunity in Sydney. The technology's been there. I think it's probably last year killed probably some of the nervousness around the technology. I think people were already using it, but being able to have a more frank conversation around, Zoom's the easiest example. I've got clients when I'm in the CBD and our office is on Kent Street, they're on Pitt, and they're like, oh, let's just do a Zoom because they're in a rush, and, rather than a 5-minute walk, we just do it over Zoom. If we need a face-to-face, we'll do a face-to-face. But previously, it would have always been those direct meetings, the hard handshakes, whatever needs to go with it. I think savvy clients have realised that there is a lot of talent out there. I think regional lawyers that I've been speaking to are really excited because saying, "Hey, I'm in Dubbo," I was chatting to someone in Dubbo recently, isn't an apology anymore. It's it's people saying, I'm in Dubbo because I've got a farm out there and I'm really happy with my farm and I love living on a farm, but I can do your work really, really well. And they're winning work out of the big firms in Sydney. And I say Sydney because we're New South Wales based, but Sydney, Melbourne, wherever it may be. And clients are quite accepting that people have made that choice. And just because, you're west of Burke doesn't mean that you have any less talent than someone that lives in the eastern suburbs.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, fantastic presentation. And folks, you'll be able to catch Michael in 2 places. Firstly, we've just published an amazing spotlight on him, which is text-based, so do pick that up on the CLI website, really worth the read. Michael's also joining a panel at our free and virtual Innovation and Legal Tech Week, which we're co-hosting with ALPMA. The sessions start on the live sessions on the 8th of February and run through for the week. So if you've not had a chance to register for that, please do, because you will have another opportunity to hear from Michael and others in his panel and the other sessions as well. And of course, if you want to pick up info about the Centre's work, do please follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter and Facebook. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for joining this session. We hope that we'll see you back for many more. And Michael, thank you again. Morrissey Law and Advisory is just a shining light in this area, and I know that you don't seek or look for accolades, but are certainly deserving of them. What you've built there is really quite outstanding. Congratulations, and you as a friend of the Centre. So thank you very much again for all of your support and the work that we do.
Thank you, Terri. It's lovely to work with you, and well done on everything the Centre's achieving.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.